Whenever you talk about having an active lifestyle, people automatically assume that you mean getting into the gym. Getting into the gym is just part of it, but having a healthy, active lifestyle is way beyond that. It means making sure that you're doing things purposefully and strategically to keep you moving. You should be more so looking for activities to make sure that you and your family aren't packing on excess weight. Some of those things include hiking, running, jogging, swimming, any type of sports. My family does judo, dance classes, whatever you can think of. Aerobics classes. Utilize the gym's workout machines, of course, but also get active in those classes as well. Also, try to find some other things that you can do to switch it up in your life that'll get you out of that habit of sitting down all the time. So if you're going out all the time, going to the movies and restaurants, what is that centered around? Sitting down and eating. You want to do things that require you to move, that challenge your body in some way. And this is how you start keeping off that weight, besides taking it off, but keeping it off lifelong. And making sure that your body stays mobile is one of the best ways to ensure that you will live longer, but also be mobile longer, which is so important in old age. Eating for pleasure is the typical American way. It's just the way that most people eat. But what does that lead us to? It always leads to unhealthiness these days. And so what I believe in is purposeful eating, eating with purpose. And that means looking at the value of food and looking at the purpose of eating that food and what it can actually do for you on multiple levels, rather than looking at the value of its taste. The taste can be altered in many different ways. There's so many healthy ways to cook food and make it taste good. So forget about the taste for a second. Look at the value of the food, and then once you see the value of that food, make it in a way that you like to eat it. So here's something to consider. The heavier you are is the more food you have to eat, calories you have to intake in order to maintain that weight. So say for instance you're 300 pounds, you have to eat enough to maintain 300 pounds to stay that weight. Otherwise you would lose weight automatically if you weren't eating enough to maintain that. So what that means is you have to be eating thousands of calories every day. And it may not seem like a lot because you've gotten used to it, but the foods that you're eating every day basically have so many carbs in it, and they're so calorie dense that one sitting, like one combo meal, that's over 1,000 calories. You do that 3 times, you have 3,000 calories, and that is why you can stay 300 pounds and be gaining instead of losing, because you don't actually know how many calories and carbs you're eating. And that's why I always suggest that everyone wanting to get on track with their weight, they need to download MyFitnessPal or some fitness apps that help you to track your food and know what's in your food, because I don't really think people understand how many calories are in the food they're eating. And now it's to a point where restaurants, they have to put on there how many calories there are. They haven't made it so that they have to tell you how many carbs there are, but they have to tell you how many calories there are. If you just pay attention to those numbers and you really look at them, at least for a day, eat normally and look at how many calories are in what you're eating, you might be very surprised, and you'll have some insight as to why you can't drop the weight based on what you're eating every day. Here's an easy way for you to think about how to align your nutrition, okay? So whenever you're trying to lose weight, chances are you really need to lower your carb intake. And sometimes that's hard for people to do. They don't know what their plate should look like from one meal to another. A rule of thumb is you can raise your ability to burn fat the same way you could raise your GPA if you were in school. Think about it this way. The higher your grades are on your tests and your projects is the higher your GPA can become, because it balances out or kind of neutralizes the other bad grades that you've gotten along the way. And so if you begin to get higher grades, it's going to make that GPA raise higher despite the bad grades you've gotten in the past. Well, in the same way, when you create your meal, you want to think of protein and good fats as your A's and B's, and your C is the carb, or your D or your F, depending on what kind of carb you use. When you put your plate together, try to avoid C, D, and F foods, or lessen them, and try to put more on your plate, the A's and B's. Those are going to be foods that are high in protein, high in good fats, leafy greens, and such. That rule of thumb can possibly help you to create a better meal and a better lifestyle overall. And remember, we're not calling certain foods bad or good. It's just that some foods make it harder for you to get to where you're going, and some foods make it easier. Just think of it that way. Living a healthy lifestyle is not about demonizing one food over the other. It's about finding what your goals are and basically eating the foods that help you to get closer to that goal. It's not about trying to make out any certain foods to be horrible and exaggerate the horribleness of that food. There's just foods that get you closer to where you want to be, and foods that don't necessarily help you to reach those goals. It's not that those foods are always unacceptable. It's just about you being able to focus on where you need to be and trying your hardest to get there. Are you going to relapse along the way? Yeah. Just move away from calling one food or the other bad. Just focus on doing the best you can. The whole issue with eating healthily is a mind battle. And so it's very important to know how to reframe the way that you look at food and how you look at this process. And this is the reason why that's primarily what I addressed, is the mind battles of the health journey. For instance, when you look at food as I can't have this or I shouldn't have that, you create a prison for yourself, and that's how you feel. You feel like you're in prison. But when you start looking at food as I can have this food if I wanted to, but I'm not taking it because it no longer fits with what I'm trying to pursue right now. And so if I have a place that I need to be, I need to do things that that person who's already there would be doing, and that person that's there would not be eating these foods right now. And so there's a time where you have to scale back, yes, and you have to reevaluate what foods will get you closer to where you want to be or not. But don't think of it as being restricted. That's where you break yourself down. Always remember that if you're seeing definition and changes in your body, that is also an improvement outside of the scale. Sometimes we simultaneously gain weight through muscle as we're losing fat. And though on the scale, it may not reflect that the weight we gain is muscle, when you look in the mirror, you also have to pay attention to how your body is changing. Now, if you're gaining weight and you're not seeing that definition, it's a different story. But if you see your skin tightening up, you're seeing muscles there that you hadn't seen before, then there's nothing to worry about. Eventually, things will level off and you'll be able to start dropping pounds again. One of the mistakes that a lot of people can make is that when something is labeled healthy, they can assume that it really is, and like overindulge in something that they shouldn't. And because it has the label of healthy, that's what makes them actually gain more weight. Like if something has diet on it, they overindulge in it, and it's just a big mistake. And then also, if something is considered healthy, like whole wheat pasta or whole wheat bread, you can overindulge in that and think, oh, this is whole wheat. Well, yeah, it's still carbs though. So some of those carbs, yes, is fiber and it's good for you and your digestive system, but it's still a lot of carbs if you're eating a whole bunch of it. So pay attention to those things. Don't let it trip you up. There's nothing worse than being on a health journey and seeing all of your hard work go to waste. I always encourage taking your time, but be determined still to make strategic steps moving forward. You can become one of those people who are habitually and perpetually losing weight, and like a decade goes by and they're still trying to lose weight. That's not taking your time. That's like basically not taking it seriously. Your body will reflect what your true attitude is about health. If you are not being serious, your body is not going to show serious results. The more my view of health and fitness was corrected, is the more my body started to reflect that. Just get it in your mind that you're going to stick with it no matter what. Be very serious about that. I think where a lot of women go wrong with their dieting is that they only have temporary things in mind. That is an immature approach to dealing with your weight. You're going to go back to where you were. But if you want to change your mentality so that when you actually lose weight, you keep it off, you need to start thinking long term. You need to start reading books, reading articles, watching videos. I could give you my meal plan, I could give you my workout regimen, but what is that going to do for you if you aren't being serious, have a food addiction you refuse to address, refuse to keep track of your nutrition, refuse to learn more about what it takes to eat right? You could take all the things that I'm doing and apply it to yourself and it wouldn't work. When you have the right mentality, then you'll find the way and it'll be something that you can sustain. So here's a little trick that I've learned. If you're eating low carb, that means you had to cut out a lot of the things you typically love to eat, like cereals and, rolls, pastas, rice, etc. And so if there's something that I really want to have, like that I haven't had in a while, say for instance a bowl of cereal, on that day that I would like to have that, I don't have any carbs any other time of the day, and I just have that as my snack. What that would look like in reality is for breakfast 2 scrambled eggs and sausage, for lunch leftover meatballs, for dinner 2 fillets of salmon. And because I ate meat all day, I still have carbs left over. That's one way I make sure that my snacks fit into my macros. It's hard to stick with any type of dieting regime or exercise regime when you haven't addressed your major issue, and that is food addiction. When you have a bad relationship with food, for whatever reason, you can't adhere to any type of restrictions. You can try and do it for a while, but you're always going to relapse. So the lack of education is one thing. A lot of people doing the wrong things and they give up because they're using the wrong methods. You have to educate yourself on the correct methods first. But at the same time, you need to be working on this addiction to sugar, which is a real serious addiction. It doesn't matter how big or small you are, there are many people out there dealing with binging issues. The way to deal with binging is simply gaining control and tracking your nutrition. As long as you're eating within your caloric intake according to your body composition and your goals, and then also and your activity, and then also you're staying in line with your macros, you can have the treats that you want, but you just have them within reason. And that way you are actually having healthy food like you're supposed to, but also having your treats without going overboard. And that prevents you from wanting or having the urge to binge, and then you're getting what you want. So it's really honestly not that hard.